If you have been dieting carefully, exercising consistently, and the belly fat still will not move, you are not failing. Your hormones are working against you. Specifically, one hormone, cortisol. Today we are going to look at the precise molecular relationship between cortisol and visceral belly fat, and then we are going to cover 6 documented methods to burn that fat without triggering the very hormone that put it there in the first place. What cortisol does to your belly fat, the molecular mechanism. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. It is produced by the adrenal glands in response to any perceived threat, physical, psychological, or metabolic. In the short term, cortisol is essential. It raises blood sugar for emergency energy, sharpens focus, and prepares the body for action. The problem is chronic cortisol, the sustained elevation that comes from modern life's relentless low-grade stressors. Work pressure, financial anxiety, poor sleep, information overload, relationship conflict, none of these are life-threatening emergencies. But your adrenal glands cannot tell the difference. They respond to a tense email the same way they responded to a predator 10,000 years ago. Research published in Obesity Reviews established the key finding. Visceral fat cells, the deep abdominal fat surrounding your internal organs, have more cortisol receptors than fat cells anywhere else in the body. This is not a coincidence of anatomy. It is an evolutionary design. When cortisol signals danger, the body stores energy in the fastest accessible location, the visceral region. When cortisol stays elevated chronically, these receptors continuously attract fat to the abdomen and resist releasing it. This is why you can run on a treadmill and follow a calorie deficit and still watch the belly remain. The hormonal signal directing fat to that location has not been addressed. The vicious cycle, why itself perpetuates. Here is where cortisol belly becomes particularly difficult. The visceral fat itself produces more cortisol. It is not just a victim of the stress response, it becomes a contributor to it. Visceral fat releases inflammatory cytokines that activate the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal system responsible for cortisol production. More visceral fat means more cortisol. More cortisol means more visceral fat directed to the abdomen. The cycle feeds itself. Cortisol also suppresses thyroid hormone conversion, meaning metabolism slows. It reduces testosterone, meaning muscle mass decreases and less fat is burned at rest. It suppresses growth hormone, meaning tissue repair is impaired. The result is a compounding metabolic crisis that no calorie counter can fully address, because the root problem is hormonal, not caloric. Why conventional approaches fail, and sometimes make it worse. Crash diets, very low-calorie protocols, trigger a cortisol stress response. The brain interprets severe caloric restriction as starvation, the genuine biological emergency. Cortisol rises to preserve energy and direct it to visceral storage. The diet that was supposed to reduce belly fat may actually be increasing the hormonal signal that created it. High-intensity exercise presents the same paradox. Intense training, HIIT, heavy lifting at high effort, twice daily workouts, is a physical stressor. For someone already under chronic psychological stress, adding intense physical training on top can push cortisol even higher. Moderate exercise lowers cortisol through endorphin release and parasympathetic activation. High-intensity exercise temporarily raises it, which is fine when overall cortisol load is low, but counterproductive when it is already elevated. Sleep deprivation is the most powerful cortisol driver of all. Every hour of sleep below 6 raises cortisol measurably the following day. Insufficient sleep also raises ghrelin, the hunger hormone, reduces insulin sensitivity, and eliminates the motivation to exercise. All 4 changes simultaneously push the body toward visceral fat storage. You can be eating perfectly and exercising regularly, but if you are sleeping 6 hours and working under constant stress, you are pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. Method 1. Optimize sleep. Sleep is the most powerful cortisol reset available, and it is free. 7 to 9 hours of consistent sleep per night is the single most effective intervention for lowering chronic cortisol. During deep sleep, cortisol reaches its daily minimum. Growth hormone is released, repairing tissue and supporting fat metabolism. The HPA axis resets its sensitivity, making it less reactive to stress the following day. The practical requirements. Consistent bedtime and wake time every day including weekends, because the circadian rhythm that governs cortisol regulation is set by consistency, not by total hours alone. No screens in the 60 minutes before sleep. Blue light suppresses melatonin and delays sleep onset. Room temperature between 18 and 20 degrees Celsius is optimal for deep sleep stages. No alcohol within 3 hours of bedtime. Alcohol disrupts sleep architecture and prevents the deep sleep where cortisol regulation occurs. And morning sunlight within 30 minutes of waking. This sets the cortisol melatonin rhythm for the entire day, ensuring cortisol peaks at the right time in the morning and drops appropriately by evening. Method 2. Moderate daily movement. Moderate exercise is a cortisol reducer. This distinction between moderate and high intensity is critical. 30 to 45 minutes of walking at conversational pace directly lowers cortisol through endorphin release and parasympathetic nervous system activation. It also preferentially burns visceral fat through insulin reduction and AMP activation. Strength training 2 to 3 times per week at moderate intensity is additive. It builds muscle that improves insulin sensitivity and creates more fat-burning tissue around the clock. But intensity matters enormously for people with elevated cortisol. Training to absolute failure, pushing cortisol as high as possible, is counterproductive when baseline cortisol is already high. The goal is enough stimulus to drive adaptation without adding to the stress burden. For most chronically stressed people, that means walking every day and lifting moderately 3 times per week, not sprinting and grinding at maximum effort day. Method 3. Lower cortisol directly. This is the method most people skip, and it is arguably the most important. Daily breathwork directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, switching the body from cortisol-producing sympathetic mode to fat-burning rest and digest mode. The 4-7-8 breathing technique, inhale 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8, activates the vagus nerve and begins lowering cortisol within 90 seconds. 10 minutes of this practice daily produces a measurable cortisol reduction within 4 to 8 weeks according to meta-analysis published in Journal Internal Medicine. Mindfulness meditation produces equivalent effects. Spending 20 minutes in a natural environment, a park, near water, in a garden, measurably reduces cortisol. Social connection lowers cortisol. Loneliness and isolation raise it. These are not optional wellness additions. They are documented cortisol management tools with the same physiological legitimacy as any medication. Method 4. Anti-cortisol nutrition. Every blood sugar crash triggers a cortisol response. Refined carbohydrates, sugary drinks, skipped meals, all cause blood sugar to drop rapidly, which the body treats as an emergency and addresses with cortisol. Multiple blood sugar crashes per day means multiple cortisol spikes per day, sustained chronic elevation from purely dietary causes. The solution: stable blood sugar through whole foods, adequate protein at every meal, dietary fiber, and the elimination of liquid fructose. Sugary drinks, sodas, fruit juices, sweetened coffees deliver fructose that is metabolized almost exclusively in the liver and converted directly to visceral fat. This is the most direct dietary driver of cortisol belly. Remove it first. Delay coffee by 90 minutes after waking, allowing the natural morning cortisol peak to clear before adding caffeine stimulation. Foods that directly lower cortisol include dark leafy greens and pumpkin seeds for magnesium, which suppresses the HPA axis, fatty fish and walnuts for omega-3 fatty acids, dark chocolate, green tea with its L-theanine content, and eggs for choline and protein that prevent blood sugar instability. Method 5. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, specifically the 16-8 protocol, targets visceral fat through insulin reduction and AMP activation without triggering the starvation cortisol response. The key distinction: 16-8 fasting with adequate calories during the eating window does not signal starvation to the brain. It signals a time-restricted eating pattern, which the body handles without significant cortisol elevation. The Journal of Alcora University for Medical Sciences published in 2025 confirmed that intermittent fasting consistently improves insulin sensitivity, lipid profiles, and body composition by promoting fat oxidation, specifically targeting visceral fat while maintaining lean mass. When combined with adequate sleep and the morning fasted walk, intermittent fasting creates 3 simultaneous low insulin windows in the day, the metabolic state where visceral fat is most accessible for burning. Method 6. Address the root stress. All 5 previous methods reduce cortisol's effects. Method 6 addresses its cause. Chronic psychological stress, unresolved work pressure, relationship conflict, financial anxiety, loneliness, information overload keeps the HPA axis activated continuously regardless of how well you sleep or eat. Identify the specific chronic stressors in your life. Vague stress cannot be managed, specific stress can be addressed, reduced, delegated, resolved, or accepted. 4 questions to ask yourself. What do you think about in the first 10 minutes of waking? What do you check on your phone before bed? What unresolved situations are you carrying? What commitments drain more than they give? The answers identify where your cortisol is coming from. And wherever it is coming from, that is where the visceral fat is being directed. The complete protocol is this. Optimize sleep first, nothing else works without it. Add the morning walk. Add daily breath work. Fix the diet, stable blood sugar, no liquid fructose, adequate protein. Add 16-8 fasting. And address the root stressors one by one. Each layer reduces cortisol through a different mechanism. Together, they produce the comprehensive hormonal shift that allows your body to finally release the visceral fat it has been protected. Not harder. Not more restricted. Smarter. See you in the next video.
Yeah, we did it! Thanks for subscribing!
That's a brief look at Health Explained. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.